Most people think their biggest problem is making the wrong decision, but that's not true. The real damage comes from waiting, overthinking, and staying stuck while life keeps moving forward. Indecision feels safe because nothing visibly breaks in the moment, but silently, it starts charging you a price every single day. This video is not about motivation, it's about understanding the real, measurable cost of staying undecided. If you look at your life honestly, you'll realize that most frustration doesn't come from failure, it comes from delay. Careers stall, confidence drops, and opportunities disappear not because people chose badly, but because they didn't choose at all. The longer you avoid decisions, the more control you hand over to time, circumstances, and other people. That loss of control is rarely noticed until it's too late. In this video, we're going to break down why indecision is far more dangerous than failure. We'll explore how delay compounds, how it reshapes your identity, and why action creates clarity instead of the other way around. If you want to stop living in mental limbo and start moving forward with intention, this is where it begins. Indecision is a decision, whether you like it or not. Most people believe that avoiding decisions protects them from risk, failure, and regret, but that belief is psychologically comforting and logically false. In reality, when you refuse to decide, you are not staying neutral, you are selecting the default path. Life doesn't wait for clarity, confidence, or perfect information, it keeps moving forward regardless of your hesitation. So even silence, delay, or confusion ends up shaping your future in very real ways. From a rational perspective, time is a non-renewable resource, and indecision consumes it aggressively. While you keep thinking, analyzing, and waiting for certainty, opportunities continue to decay in value. Markets shift, skills become outdated, and competitors move ahead without your permission. By the time you finally feel ready, the same option either no longer exists or demands a much higher cost to enter. Indecision also creates a hidden mental tax that most people fail to notice. Your brain keeps reopening the same unresolved loop again and again, draining focus and cognitive energy. This constant background stress reduces your ability to perform well in other areas of life. Instead of one bold moment of discomfort, you suffer prolonged low-grade anxiety for weeks or years. The harsh truth is that indecision doesn't keep you safe, it slowly locks you into stagnation. Growth only happens after commitment, not before it. People who move forward aren't always smarter or more confident, they just accept uncertainty faster. The real cost isn't choosing wrong, the real cost is never choosing at all. The compounding cost of delay. Every delayed decision has a cost, but that cost rarely shows up immediately, which is why most people underestimate it. Just like compound interest works silently in finance, indecision compounds in life without making noise. One missed opportunity leads to another, and over time the gap between where you are and where you could have been becomes massive. By the time the damage is visible, reversing it requires exponentially more effort. Delay doesn't just pause progress, it actively makes future decisions harder. Skills that could have been learned earlier now require more time, more discipline, and more mental resistance. Networks that could have been built organically now feel awkward to enter late. What was once a small step becomes a steep climb simply because you waited too long. From a practical standpoint, early decisions benefit from flexibility. When you start early, you can afford to make mistakes, pivot directions, and refine your approach. But when you delay, the margin for error disappears. Late decisions demand perfection because there's no buffer left to absorb failure. People often regret the wrong decisions they made, but statistically, the deepest regrets come from the decisions they never made. Not because those paths were guaranteed to succeed, but because they were never tested. Delay steals optionality, and once options disappear, no amount of motivation can bring them back. Fear disguised as logic. Most indecision is not caused by lack of information, it is caused by fear pretending to be intelligence. People tell themselves they are analyzing, researching, or waiting for the right time, but beneath that language is emotional avoidance. The brain uses logic as a shield to justify staying in a comfortable zone. This is not rational thinking, it is fear management. From a scientific standpoint, the human brain is wired to avoid uncertainty because uncertainty feels like a threat. The amygdala reacts to unknown outcomes the same way it reacts to physical danger. That's why even small decisions feel heavy when the outcome is unclear. Instead of acknowledging fear, people over-optimize logic to delay action. The problem is that perfect information never arrives. Real-world decisions are made with incomplete data, probabilities, and assumptions. Waiting for certainty is equivalent to choosing paralysis. Rational people don't eliminate risk, they learn to act with calculated risk. When you call fear logic, you give it authority over your future. Over time, this habit weakens your decision-making muscle. The longer you avoid choosing, the harder it becomes to trust yourself. Confidence is not a personality trait, it is built by repeated action under uncertainty. The identity damage of indecision. Indecision doesn't just delay external results, it slowly damages your internal identity. Every time you avoid making a choice, your brain records a subtle message that you are not someone who acts. Over time, these micro-messages accumulate and shape how you see yourself. Identity is not built by intentions, it is built by repeated behavior. Psychologically, humans need evidence to trust themselves. When you consistently postpone decisions, you deny yourself that evidence. You stop seeing yourself as capable, decisive, or reliable. This creates a feedback loop where low self-trust leads to more hesitation, and more hesitation further lowers self-trust. From a practical lens, people who struggle to decide often overvalue external validation. They ask too many opinions, wait for permission, or look for guarantees from others. This dependence slowly erodes autonomy and leadership potential. Decisive people aren't always right, but they are respected because they take responsibility. Indecision turns life into something that happens to you instead of something you direct. You begin reacting instead of choosing. Once that pattern solidifies, breaking it requires conscious effort and discomfort. The cost is not just lost opportunities, the cost is a weakened sense of self. Opportunity cost is the invisible killer. Most people calculate cost only in terms of money, but the most damaging cost is opportunity cost. When you choose nothing, you are automatically choosing everything else you could have done instead. Time spent hesitating could have been used to build skills, experiment, or gain experience. Those lost alternatives never show up on a balance sheet, but they define your long-term outcome. From an economic perspective, opportunity cost grows as time passes. The earlier you act, the more future upside you unlock. A small decision made today can compound into massive advantages over years. Indecision blocks that compounding effect completely. What makes opportunity cost dangerous is that it feels invisible in the moment. There is no immediate pain, no obvious loss, no warning signal. Life still looks fine on the surface. But later, when you compare yourself to others who started earlier, the gap feels unfair even though it was self-created. Rational thinking requires comparing action versus inaction, not action versus perfection. Many people avoid decisions because they fear making the wrong move, but statistically, doing nothing is often the worst possible move. The biggest losses usually come from paths never taken. Indecision trains you to accept less. Indecision subtly lowers your standards without you realizing it. When you delay choices repeatedly, you begin adjusting your expectations downward to reduce internal conflict. Instead of asking what you truly want, you start asking what feels easiest to tolerate. Over time, this shift reshapes your entire life trajectory. From a behavioral science angle, humans adapt quickly to suboptimal situations. The brain normalizes discomfort if it is familiar. Indecision keeps you stuck in familiar dissatisfaction rather than risking unfamiliar improvement. This is why many people remain in bad jobs, unhealthy relationships, or unfulfilling routines for years. Practically, when you stop choosing proactively, you accept outcomes chosen by circumstances. Deadlines decide for you, people decide for you, and randomness fills the gap. What feels like going with the flow is often just surrendering control. The longer this pattern continues, the harder it becomes to reclaim agency. High performers are not immune to fear, they just refuse to let fear dictate their standards. They decide, adjust, and move again. Indecision, on the other hand, trains you to settle. And settling slowly becomes your default operating system. Time punishes the undecided. Time is neutral, but its effects are not. It rewards those who act early and punishes those who hesitate too long. When you delay decisions, you are not just losing time, you are allowing time to work against you. Skills decay, energy declines, and responsibilities increase, shrinking your freedom to act later. From a biological and cognitive standpoint, your capacity for risk-taking changes with age and context. Younger years come with fewer obligations and higher adaptability. Indecision wastes this high-leverage phase of life. When you finally decide later, the same choice carries more risk and less upside. In practical terms, late decisions come with pressure. You are forced to choose quickly, often under stress, because options are limited. This reduces decision quality and increases regret. Ironically, avoiding small early discomfort creates larger unavoidable discomfort later. People often say, "I still have time," but time doesn't stay equally valuable forever. The cost of indecision is not linear, it accelerates. The longer you wait, the more expensive action becomes. Time doesn't care about intentions, only actions. Decisive people create momentum. Decisions create momentum, and momentum simplifies everything that comes after. Once a decision is made, the mind shifts from debating to executing. Clarity replaces confusion, and energy that was trapped in overthinking gets released into action. This is why decisive people often appear more confident, even when they are unsure internally. From a neurological perspective, action reduces anxiety more effectively than rumination. The brain prefers movement over stagnation. When you act, feedback loops activate and learning accelerates. Indecision blocks this process, keeping you stuck in a loop of imagined outcomes rather than real data. Momentum also compounds socially and professionally. People trust and support those who move with intent. Opportunities tend to cluster around individuals who act, not because they are lucky, but because they are visible. Indecision keeps you invisible, while decisions signal seriousness. The key insight is that clarity follows action, not the other way around. Waiting to feel confident before deciding is backwards. Confidence is the byproduct of surviving your own decisions. Momentum is built step by step, and it always starts with a choice. Regret comes from inaction more than failure. Failure is loud, but inaction is silent, and that's why it's more dangerous. When you fail, you get data, closure, and often a clear lesson. When you don't act, the mind keeps replaying alternate futures. These imagined outcomes become emotional debt that accumulates over time. Psychological studies on regret consistently show that long-term regret is more strongly linked to things people didn't do than things they did. This is because action allows resolution, while inaction keeps possibilities open forever. The brain hates unresolved loops. Indecision keeps those loops alive. From a rational standpoint, failure is finite. You try, you fail, you adjust, and you move on. Inaction has no endpoint. It quietly follows you into the future, resurfacing during moments of comparison or self-reflection. That "what if" question never expires. People who decide and fail still develop resilience, skill, and self-respect. People who never decide often protect their ego in the short term but lose confidence in the long term. The pain of failure is temporary. The pain of regret is cumulative. Decision-making is a skill you can train. The final truth is that decision-making is not a talent reserved for a few people, it is a trainable skill. Like any skill, it improves through repetition, feedback, and correction. The more decisions you make, the better your intuition, judgment, and risk assessment become. Avoiding decisions keeps this skill permanently underdeveloped. From a practical and scientific angle, good decisions come from probability thinking, not certainty. You choose the best option with the information available, act, observe the outcome, and update your model. This iterative process is how progress actually happens in the real world. Waiting for perfect clarity is anti-growth. Strong decision makers don't aim to be right every time, they aim to move forward efficiently. They build systems that allow fast decisions and fast corrections. This mindset removes the emotional weight from choosing. A decision is no longer a life sentence, it is just the next experiment. The cost of not making decisions is a life lived on pause. Growth demands commitment, not comfort. The moment you decide, even imperfectly, you reclaim control. And control, not certainty, is what creates progress. If this video made you uncomfortable, that's a good sign. Discomfort means something clicked, something you've been avoiding finally got named. The goal here was never to scare you, but to make you see that staying undecided is not neutral, it's expensive. Every day you delay, you are still paying the price, whether you notice it or not. You don't need perfect clarity to move forward, you need commitment to act and adjust. One decision, even a small one, is enough to break the cycle of overthinking. Momentum doesn't come from confidence, it comes from choosing and learning along the way. Progress always favors those who move. So don't wait for motivation, permission, or certainty. Decide, act, observe, and refine. Life rewards direction, not hesitation. And the moment you choose, you stop being stuck and start being in control.